must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Thank you so much for joining us. About 20 minutes past 9 a.m. here in Nairobi. We apologize for the late start. We had a bit of a technical hitch, but nevertheless, we are here and we'll be bringing you the latest news from Kenya by going through the leading newspapers in the country. And before I bring in my panelists, I'll do just that. And my name is Miriam Mugutu, and you're welcome. So we'll start with the headlines on the papers this morning, and then I'll bring in my panelists in a short bit. And on the Standard newspaper, Uhuru owns up to Pandora leaks. The president says the Pandora papers will usher in a new age of transparency in Kenya and promises to respond comprehensively on returning from a state visit in the U.S. The story is on page 4 and 5 of the Standard newspaper, where bandits' bullets have killed dreams. The story is on page 16. Ruto Raila to decide top Nakuru race. The story is on page 26. State to spend 2.5 billion on lawyers. The story is on page 32. Weekend of upsets in top leagues. The story is on page 48. And KRA recovers 100 billion Kenya shillings from cheats. Taxman says collection may fall by 23 billion Kenya shillings due to the court's decision on minimum tax and adjustment of excise duty on petroleum products. The story is on page 3, and then just below that, Chebukati, we are broke but must work. In the registration exercise that started yesterday, IEBC has stationed 3 instead of 6 kids in each of the 1,450 county assembly wards. The story is on page 10 of the Standard newspaper. Then we head on to the Star newspaper, and the main headline, we can account for our offshore billions. Uhuru, the Kenyatta family has 13 offshore firms, one of which was valued with assets worth 3.31 billion Kenya shillings. The story is on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper, and the main pictorial, Northeastern top guns throw weight behind Raila. ODM leader yesterday was in Garissa to meet with the Northeastern leaders, and that is what has formed that is the main pictorial on the Star newspaper. Battle for numbers, low turnout as IEBC starts mass voter registration countrywide. The story is on page 6 of the Star newspaper. And we move on swiftly to the Daily Nation, but the main headline still the same story, Pandora's box. These reports will go a long way in enhancing the financial transparency and openness that we require in Kenya and around the globe. The Pandora papers and subsequent follow-up audits will lift that veil of secrecy and darkness for those who cannot explain their assets or wealth. That is what President Uhuru Kenyatta said yesterday. Curfew extended again for 30 days. Kagwe says despite low positivity rate, Kenya still below the World Health Organization's threshold for flattening the curve. And I think that is where we'll start our conversation this morning. So let me first introduce my panelists. I apologize. We do have Daniel Wesonga joining us this morning. Daniel, a very good morning to you.
Yes, good morning, Miriam Ogutu at our headquarters in Nairobi. Good morning to my fellow panelists, Starwish Sasina, Sharon Gitonga, and our viewers here in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world. A very good morning.
Good morning to you. And we do have Sharon Gitonga with us this morning too. Sharon, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Miriam Mugutu at the headquarters, my co-panelists Samuel Tawish and Daniel Wesonga, and to all our viewers watching us across the continent. It is a pleasure to be part of this morning show. Thank you.
All right, Karibu Sana. And we do have Samuel Tawish, a journalist from Nairobi. Samuel Tawish, good morning.
Good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu. Good morning to Sharon Gitonga, as well as Sean Wesonga, my colleague, panelist, and all our viewers who are watching this program around the world. It's a pleasure to join you on this program.
All right. I welcome all of you. And before we get to the Pandora issue, let's first look at another story that was trending yesterday, and that is the government has extended the nightly curfew and other COVID-19 containment measures for 30 days. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe yesterday said despite the low positivity rate, Kenya is still below the World Health Organization threshold for flattening the curve. The low positivity rate in the county does not mean we are safe. As per World Health Organization, we have to consistently have a 2-week below 5% positivity rate in order to ease some of the containment measures. He said we want to use the spirit to ensure that we vaccinate as many people by December in order to reach the set target of 10 million people. And so when you heard that the curfew, and the nightly curfew especially, has been extended, Sharon Gitonga, what was your initial thought?
Thank you very much, Miriam. And indeed, this is not a very new thing. But again, I don't understand, the logic behind having the curfew at night. Then, during the day, when you look at in matatus, people are bombarding left, right, and center. And I think that would have been like a major a major place where COVID is highly transmitted. And also when I look at the political rallies, how when you look at the current happenings, if anything, I think if they can allow room for political rallies to happen, then they should just open up the economy. And maybe the only thing that would be really made strict is on the issue of vaccination. Yeah, so where we can have I look at like countries like Zimbabwe, where maybe we can have like strict measures over, for you to visit, let's say, for example, in supermarkets, bars, churches, you have to have, a COVID-19 vaccination, because that's the end goal, to have as many people vaccinated. So when we have, strict measures, people are going to, take it seriously, because as it is right now, people are still trying to weigh and see. So I don't think, having the curfew is in any way going to curb COVID-19 in any case, I submit.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon Gitonga. Samuel Tawish, the schools are open and probably there's not much social distancing there. The churches are open. Matatus now, public service vehicles, they're carrying a full capacity, but the nightly curfew still stays on.
Very well. Thank you so much, Miriam. And thank you for that question. To begin with, Miriam, there's what appears to be a public outcry or uproar as regards to the extension of the curfew and other guidelines as far as the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned. Indeed, it's a legitimate concern, rather genuine concern coming from Kenyans, because everyone would really wish that the economy is fully open so that we can go back and concentrate on building our nation, and more so making sure that our source of livelihood is not completely lost. But again, Miriam, all this that we advocate for cannot work when we have lost our lives, when our people are sick. I think the government, through the Ministry of Health, is actually right. Want to extend that particular curfew, but just like Sharon Gitonga has raised that misgiving as to how we permitting some other activities to proceed as normal or as usual when we are, of course, extending the curfews and also making it difficult for people to carry out with their day-to-day activities. For instance, I think Sharon has mentioned about the heightened political activities in the country. We've seen politicians continue to have their political rallies and political gatherings everywhere, anytime, any day, and nothing is being done. But getting 10 people converging, ordinary Kenyans, then it becomes a problem and the police will be pouncing on you. I think that will be double standard, and the government should not be doing that, because again, members of the public will be viewing it as though the government is too much hard or rather so much hard on the ordinary monarchy other than the elite or the politicians in the country. But again, Miriam, it's a collective responsibility individually regarding on what we do. It depends really on how we are going to defeat this COVID-19, because when we go to matatus and we do not want to observe social distance, for example, when we go to places and we do not want to observe the social distance, when we do not want to wear masks, when we do not want to wash our hands, Miriam, when we do not want to observe the curfew regulations, then it is like we are trying to fight with government. And this pandemic is not about us and government. It is about our individual responsibility, and collectively, if we do every of our bit, then we'll be winning the war against this pandemic. So I call upon Kenyans indeed. It's a very devastating moment for the people of Kenya, and I think entire world. But again, let us just observe these guidelines that have been given by the experts, by the Ministry of Health, because in essence, I do not think that they're intended really to hound the ordinary people or to hound the populace. It's about safeguarding the lives of the people and making sure that we do not create more avenues or chances where we spread the risk of this COVID-19 pandemic. Miriam, I submit.
All right, thank you so much. Daniel Wasonga, the nightly curfew, is there a need for its extension? I know the government strategy is to have as at least 10 million Kenyans to be vaccinated before December. Perhaps this is just one of the ways to encourage Kenyans to go and get vaccinated. So far, the country has about 4 million vaccinated Kenyans, but will this strategy work?
Yes, thank you, Miriam. And of course, the dusk to dawn curfew is much appreciated. In that, you understand that if there was no such a curfew, then it means people will be doing all kind of manner of things during the night. And when I talk about that, you understand what I'm talking about. People going to party, people going to drink alcohol and getting, close to one another. And that is where the super spreaders are. When people are drunk, they do not have any regard for the social distance. They do not have regard in matters of even using their face mask and even sanitizing and all that. So I think by doing away with such kind of engagements, by imposing the dusk to dawn curfew, I believe the numbers, it's actually effective in such a manner, because in other worlds, in China, in Europe, in America, it has been done and numbers significantly dropped when we had such containment measures in place. So in science, they take whatever experiment that works in terms of even combating a disease like COVID-19. So to me, I think the best strategy is the one that is being used by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization, which is world over. Today, if you heard that the UK is facing rising numbers, the next thing you know, the Ministry of Health of the United Kingdom will impose a dusk to dawn curfew into the country. And the results will be a reduced numbers of infection, which will effectively also reduce the positivity rate. So I think, to me, Miriam, as much as the Cabinet Minister for Health says that Kenya is not yet in the threshold that World Health Organization recommends in terms of the positivity rate, I believe it is still time for us to continue adhering to these measures to the latter. And once now we hit at least a lower positivity rate, and also a majority of our population is actually inoculated, then we shall be able to ease some of these measures. One thing I've learned about COVID-19 is that in as much as these containment measures, in as much as the regulations that are brought by the government might be hurting to the common man, might be hurting to the economy, it is just a must that we follow them, because if we do not adhere to these containment measures, it means more lives are going to be lost. And you can always revive an economy, you can always create more jobs, but you can never raise the dead people back to lives. And I believe that is the way we should go. Also, my co-panelists have touched on something very important, that is the state of our political gatherings. And that is something the government should not mince word on it. Let them have a crackdown on these politicians who are addressing massive crowds of people. We've seen, like, for example, the ODM leader, the former prime minister, is using town hall meetings. But his arch rival, the deputy president, has actually been engaging people in mass crowds and even the town halls. So we need to draw a line, Miriam. We need to tell the politicians that should you be found holding a big rally in a marketplace or whichever area around this country, then you might as well face an arrest and be taken to court and be charged for enabling the spread of the COVID-19 disease. We remember when the pandemic began, we had the Kilifi deputy governor being arrested for his carelessness when traveling among his people, and he had been actually been tested and been found to be positive with the COVID-19. That is the kind of seriousness that we need in our political class, Miriam. I submit.
But just to be fair, I think also Raila has been holding rallies, open-air rallies, like the one he did when he visited central Kenya. Did you see the crowd at Githurai in other areas? So I think they're all culpable. They all must take responsibility. And yeah, you've talked about the issue of double standards. I think that's why Kenyans are complaining about this new extension of the measures, because the political rally seems to be continuing as usual. Nobody is being held accountable, and these we know are the mass spreaders. You go to churches, they're fully packed. Our schools are open. Public, transportation is back, and they carry full capacity. So I think Kenyans are just trying to understand what is it with the night curfew? What is it that happens past 10 and 4 a.m. in the morning that will increase the spread of COVID-19. But anyway, I'm sure the Ministry of Health has good reasons for that. Something else that also is important and that is happening. Yesterday, the battle for millions of new voters started with the Electoral Commission launching mass registration yesterday. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Chairman Wafula Chebukati, presided over the launch of the listing in Nakuru and assured Kenyans of a free, fair and credible 2022 general election. Any other form of interference will not be tolerated. We are prepared and ready. We have drawn a roadmap to manage the 2022 general election, he said at the Nakuru Athletic Club. While Kenya has a total of about 9.2 million eligible new voters, IEBC is seeking to enlist only 6 million, those who had either not turned 18 years by 2017 or those who had attained the age but failed to register. The registration of 6 million new voters will raise Kenya's total voters registered to 25 million, up from 19.6 million in 2017. According to the 2019 census, Kenyans aged 15 years and above were 29 million, out of which at least 4.5 million have acquired IDs but are not registered as voters. But with official data from the National Registration Bureau indicating that nearly 1 million eligible youth may not be enrolled for lack of national identity cards, the government plans to use chiefs to deliver the documents. All right. And so IEBC started its registration yesterday, and Wafula Chebukati, the chair of the IEBC, already is complaining about the lack of enough funds. Usually they are supposed to take to carry out 2 registrations. This one that will go for 30 days and then perhaps later on, maybe early next year or something like that. But they're saying that will not be possible because of lack of funds. So this new registration, are we likely to see more youth coming up? The young people inspired to participate in this very important civic duty next year? Or what is likely to happen here? Sharon Gitonga.
Thank you very much, Miriam, and my co-panelist. And on the issue of IEBC, it's a good thing that they officially launched. I hear it's no longer a mass voters registration, but an enhanced registration constituency.
What's the difference? Because I think when you're having 7 million over people registered, that is a mass. What's the difference, please? Maybe make us understand. Go ahead.
I think the difference is that now they have moved from the constituency to the ward level. I think that could be the difference.
But that is how it used to be done. When I was moving from my, when I was registering, I just did it on my ward level. I don't know, maybe things are different from where you come from.
Well, I think that's from what I was reading. I think that's the only difference that I saw. But with IEBC, there are so many loopholes that have been have not yet been sealed. And from what I'm seeing, it's an issue of failing to plan, and we are preparing ourselves to planning to fail. as they say. When I look at yesterday, I am so concerned about, the low turnout of the first day. I think I had Chebukati talk about this time they have, 3 BVR kits as opposed to 6 for every ward. So that is also, it's also raising, eyebrows for me. Are these kits going to be enough? So I think IEBC is not yet fully planned, and the fact that there are no enough resources. I think this itself is a recipe for failure. And then on the issue of IDs, I don't know why this, it's only in Kenya where IDs take months and months and months
but IDs don't take months anymore. I think I lost mine. I went, and in 2 weeks I had gotten a new ID, and right now I think with Huduma centers it has become very easy, because I took my ID in the 90s. Let me tell you, you would wait for about 3 months, okay, and you would walk from one police station to go get I don't know what, and then you walk around. So it was very hectic. But now with the Huduma centers and the new mode of getting these IDs, I think it has become much easier the last time I had that experience.
I think you're different, because I think I have people who, with IDs, and especially when you go to the mashinani, there's also the problem of, coordination all the way from the government to the chiefs. So how they are able to, reach out, how the IDs are able to reach out to people in the up country. So I think if we can have an easier way of ensuring that these IDs are able to reach on time, I think we're going to be in a better place. And then I don't know why waiting cards are also not, if we can also have maybe an instance where people who have waiting cards are able to vote, I think we would also be, it will bring out more youths on board to vote.
All right. Sorry, I said I took my ID in the 90s, no, in the early 2000s. But Samuel Tawish, I don't know, Sharon Gitonga has raised a very important issue there of IDs delaying, especially for those who are getting their IDs for the first time. I thought this changed, but apparently not. I don't know, do you have any different experience or knowledge of somebody whose ID took forever to get to them?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Miriam. And I think, Miriam, the situation on the ground is not as where we are. It's not as the situation here at the city. And that is why you see Sharon Gitonga is giving you scenarios that it is not quite easy as it is in the city really to get the IDs in the rural areas. Because you've given an instance of just walking to the Huduma Center, I believe at the GPO offices here in Nairobi, and you can't quite get a replacement of your ID, or even if you are to get a new one for that matter. And it's not as steady as it used to be. But the situation in the rural areas, I think, remains almost the same. Even with the Huduma centers, they are not as spread as they are in the cities. Because again, if you went to say to Kilgoris constituency, then every of the constituent in that place have to move all the way to Kilgoris town to get the Huduma Center so that they can get these very important documents. But of course, in Nairobi, things are different. The Huduma centers are spread almost in every of these regions. Miriam, away from that, I think we are discussing a very important thing regarding the preparedness ahead of the 2022 general election. And voter registration is one of those key aspects or fundamentals that really determine how this exercise is going to be successful. It is therefore imperative and important that IEBC is carrying out this exercise. However, I want to fault them for failing to carry out a proper sensitization campaign or program that would have seen more people really encouraged and inspired to go and, of course, get this voters card. I think it was just the other week when IEBC announced that they will be carrying out this voter registration for a period of about 1 month. I do not see that as a short time because, again, like it was reported yesterday, it is tradition for Africans and particularly Kenyans that we like maybe the last minute rush That is why you see not so many people are really bothered to go and register now, because they know there are still over 28 or 29 days to go. So they will be waiting until the last minute before they go and register. But it is our appeal. It is our appeal that maybe Kenyans who are eligible to go and register as voters really come out and register in their numbers, because again, through this voter registration and going to cast your vote will be one way of determining the kind of leadership you will want. They say the bad leaders are elected by good people who do not vote. So how do you intend to change the leadership of this country when you cannot have a voter's card? Because it is a first step for you to be eligible really to vote come 2022 or any other election that we'll be having. Away from that, Miriam, my other panelist has also spoken about, of course, the deficit on the budget allocation to IEBC. And I think it is one of the issues that IEBC has been raising. I think if IEBC is persuaded enough that they are preparing ahead of 2022 general election, they have to begin with the primary fundamentals by ensuring that all eligible voters have been registered really to vote in 2022. Then we will be crossing every of this bridge when we get there. If it's about a second voter registration, then let's see if we do not have enough resources. If it's about, say, for example, finances to do ballot printing or prepare for that particular by-election, that particular general election, then we will have to discuss that when we get to that level. So it's not enough for IEBC to come and tell us that they do not have enough money to do voter registration, but they are preparing to print ballot papers. You need voters to go and cast their ballot. So the first thing must be done. You must carry out a voters registration. There's nothing to do with saying we do not have enough resources, we do not have enough money, because for you to carry out this exercise, you need voters to go and cast their votes. So it is important that IEBC stresses and focuses so much on a sensitization program and thorough voter registration of all eligible voters in the country. And then if there will be any deficiencies in terms of the finances to do a ballot printing or preparation, other preparations towards 2022, I think the country will come to that conversation and see how best it can be dealt with. But as at now, Miriam, I think they should carry out with that particular exercise, and Kenyans as well should be encouraged to go out and register as voters. This is an exercise that should not only be left to IEBC. I think even the political players, I know it's a mandate and responsibility of IEBC. They have resources at their disposal. In fact, even for sensitization programs, for advertisement, they have allocation for the same within the IEBC structures. They have to give out that money, say, to the media companies to carry out advocacy and campaigns to sensitize members of the public as to the need to go and actually register as voters. That is very, very important. But as we speak, also, we need to see media houses come out voluntarily and carry out these campaigns freely so that we can encourage our people to go and register as voters. I think it is very important. This is a challenge not to IEBC alone, it's a challenge to all practitioners or stakeholders, if you like. I submit, Miriam.
Thank you so much for that. And we are also joined this morning by Professor Gerald Onyari. Professor, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Miriam.
All right, so we're looking at the mass registration that started yesterday. IEBC commenced its mass registration for the new voters, and they're targeting. All right, Prof, could you mute your device, please? Thank you. They're targeting new voters. So are we likely to see these new voters, which majority of them are the young people, come and register as voters in preparation for next year's election? And IEBC, of course, has decried the lack of funding. So will this affect, I think Sharon there had raised this issue before, that might already compromise the whole process, the lack of funding, even as IEBC have started their registration? Prof. Very well, Daniel. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Miriam. And of course, I strongly agree with both my fellow panelists, Sharon Gitonga and Samuel Talwish. First, on Sharon's basis, you realize that Huduma Huduma centers have been very, very revolutionary in terms of bringing services closer to the people of this country. And those services include the distribution, application and distribution of IDs. You realize that if you have to go for your ID to replace your ID at a Huduma center, it will take you at least only 2 weeks, unlike the past where it could take a period of months for you to be able to get a new ID. So to that extent, I believe the president did quite well in his first time by launching Huduma centers, which supplemented other points where you could pick your ID, such as Chiefs Camp and the provincial administration offices. So to that extent, I believe they have done a good job. But be as it may, Miriam, I believe much ought to be done, especially in the rural areas where Tarwish and Sharon have actually put much of their emphasis on. You realize that these people in the rural areas still are grappling with the issues of obtaining an ID. And if they have to apply for an ID, they have to walk miles and miles of distances before they can be able to reach a Huduma center, or maybe a Chiefs Camp, or maybe even a provincial administration office. So to me, I think they must check on that particular issue. And like I've always said, Miriam, an election is not a one-day event. It is a process. It starts from the registration, sensitization, through the campaigns, and to the day of casting your ballot, until the ballots are counted, the candidates, the winners are declared, and now transition happens. That is now when you say you have had a very peaceful, transparent, free and fair election. But if any of the processes is flouted, including the process of having voters being registered, then the entire process will be null and void, because you realize that you're going to be locking out a very, very big number of people if you do not allow them to register under the context of they do not have the identification cards. And therefore, I side with my brother Tarwish that IEBC should not be talking about printing ballot papers when it has not done a sensitization campaign to register new voters en masse and to ensure that of the 6 million votes that they're counting on, every vote counts actually. And it can only count if these people are registered and they are sensitized about the importance of them electing their leaders by themselves, not just sitting at home and letting a few of us going to elect the leaders. It might end up in a situation where the few people that you've put your mandate on actually end up electing wrong leaders for you, like Tarwish said. So to me, I think let the government, through the Ministry of Interior, step up the registration and the receivership of the IDs. Let the IEBC now follow up with these people who have received their IDs and make sure they are registered. And also, Miriam, I think it is an issue which has been talked about before, and the issue of people being allowed perhaps just to vote. So long as you have your ID, you should actually be automatically registered through the IEBC. IEBC should come up with a system where people should actually just maybe register online and then choose the polling station that they want, and then they could just go maybe to the IEBC office or maybe whichever center they put for their biometrics to be taken. Also, the same thing with those ones who want to change their polling stations. I think it is high time IEBC digitalized for that. You don't have to go to the IEBC offices like they're telling us today. For someone like me, next year I'll have to vote in a different polling station. So what Wafula Chebukati was telling me yesterday is that I have to visit my constituency polling station. And you realize for people who are engaged throughout the week, like we do, will not have time actually to go and maybe have their details transferred. So for such, IEBC should ease up the process so that if you have voted before and your biometrics have been taken, you just go to the website and you can edit and confirm your new polling station. That will ease up things, and it will make sure that we do not have voter apathy. We do not have this apartheid kind of scenario in voter registration, where a majority of the people in the rural areas, a majority of young people who have not yet acquired their IDs, despite attaining the constitutional age of 18 years, are locked out of this important electoral process. I submit, Miriam.
All right, very well, thank you so much. And Sharon? Yes.
Sorry.
I wanted to say thank you for bringing up the issue of the lateness of of some areas receiving their IDs.
I wanted to add something now that I've had my panelists talk about the issue of sensitization, and I think from the look of things, there's a question of accountability and integrity from IEBC, because I believe they receive around, I think, 5 billion every financial year. And apart from wages and by election, I don't think we've seen so much on civic education and sensitization. So I think there's also that aspect of accountability from the IEBC.
All right, thank you so much. All right, thank you. So something else, I know we all want to talk about the Pandora Papers. We'll get to that in a bit. But something else that I think Kenyans would also want to know: proposals made by legislators to reduce rising cost of fuel, reduction by half of value-added tax, that is VAT, charged on petroleum products is among the recommendations by a parliamentary committee to reduce the price of fuel. Also targeted for slashing is excise duty and petroleum development levy, as well as scrapping of 1.5% railway development levy, the multiple taxes blamed for the spiraling of price of fuel. MPs also want to amend regulations to require the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority to seek parliamentary approval before announcing price reviews. These proposals are contained in a report by the Finance and National Planning Committee that is expected to be tabled in the National Assembly today for considerations. Sources within the committee told the nation members had come up with the far-reaching recommendations they felt would reduce the price of fuel that has risen sharply, sparking public uproar. We have explored several options, including the reduction of VAT, which we believe, if adopted by the House today, will help in stabilizing the prices. So finally, the House gets to do what it was supposed to have. It was supposed to have done so many years ago, regulating, the taxes that are added to the fuel that, give us this ballooning prices that we pay for the fuel. I'll start with you, Sharon. All right, Samuel. Tawish?
Thank you.
That question, I know it is it's a bit probably late, and that is the question that Kenyans are pondering with out here. That how come members of parliament, when it comes to taxation and making sure that the same tax is set, it is the members of parliament, of course, who enact these particular laws or legislation that have seen probably the cost of living and more so the cost of fuel also going up. This taxation, I remember when there was that debate in Parliament some time back, I think members of Parliament took politics as a priority to them. The populist politics by not really giving a keener eye into this particular taxation. But again, it has come back to haunt us, and we are facing the reality at this particular moment when they now have to go back to the drawing board and see how they are going to effect changes to that legislation so that this burden can be eased on the part of the ordinary Mwananchi. Indeed, their life is becoming unbearable out here, Miriam, and I think it's a great testimony that our legislators, whom we have given the opportunity to represent us in Parliament and also to legislate on behalf of the people of Kenya, should be doing the honorable thing, as their name suggests, Miriam, because again, it is not just enough for them to be elected and to go there to sit in that parliament without really looking into what is it that is affecting the people, what is it that is in the interest of the people. If it's about the huge taxation, then they have to sit down and see how they're going to do it. Many a times, Miriam, we have seen parliamentarians or these politicians really prioritize agendas or things that matter to them when it comes to increasing their own allowances, when it's about working on their, expanded privileges in Parliament, and so many of such things that benefit them as members of Parliament. They will always give it a priority, and they will do whatever it takes really to do that activity. But when it comes to things that matter to the ordinary people, we've not seen them give so much attention. But I think because we are headed into an election, they know that the people who are the ultimate employers out here are waiting for them. And they will be voting most of these politicians out because they have not represented us in Parliament as we as they should. They have not done as we had anticipated. Therefore, I think they are just doing this for the sake of trying to persuade and massage again the members of the public to vote them in come the 2022 general election. But it is important. It is a topic that we do not want to sensationalize. It is something that members of parliament need to sit down soberly and discuss, regardless of the political persuasion, regardless of the divide that one comes from or the region. This kind of taxation and the cost of living is burdensome, not to which part of the country, but I think to every corner of this country and to every individual, regardless of where you come from or to which kind of political persuasion you subscribe to. So this is something that's welcome, although long overdue. It's something that we want to see them expedite so that not only the cost of fuel, but the entire cost of living really can come down. Because you understand, Miriam, fuel is the major factor when it comes to the cost of production. It affects almost all other factors of production. So in itself, when the cost of fuel goes up, you will anticipate that the cost of living goes up. And I think that is what we are feeling, that is what we are facing as a people now. It's a good endeavor, it's a good initiative. We need to support them, but they need to do this in good faith and in good way.
Okay, thank you. Now the committee proposes that the VAT on fuel is reduced by half from the current 8% to between 4 and 6%. Should MPs approve this recommendation, the retail price would fall by at least 5 shillings per litre for petrol and 4.28 Kenya shillings for diesel and 4.1 Kenya shillings for kerosene. Following the latest review, consumers are paying 9.98 shillings per litre of petrol and 8.56 shillings for diesel and 8.21 for kerosene. The VAT on fuel was introduced by the VAT Act of 2013, but its implementation was deferred by 3 years until 2016. Another 2-year extension was granted through the Finance Act, but when it lapsed in 2018, the government imposed a tax. So, Daniel.
Yes.